Triangle BNI. Today's show is brought to you by Oak City Tech. Oak City Tech can help you power your goals with proven technologies to increase traffic, leads, and sales. Web design, SEO, social media, doesn't matter. They can help you. If you go to oakcitytech.com, tell them what you're looking for. I know they can help you. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Triangle BNI. My name is Mike Manning, and each week we bring you a small business success story from Triangle BNI. If you are not familiar with BNI, it is Business Networking International, the world's largest networking organization. Our little slice of heaven here in North Carolina, the Triangle, is Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill. Each week, about 40 groups and almost 600 small business owners get together, and the only thing we do is try to help each other grow their business. And our guest, our small business success story guest today is Haley Gray with Fiercely Marketing. Haley, how are you today?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing so wonderfully. It's a wonderful Monday morning.
We are glad to have you here. You are set up in your studio, and we'll get to your world here in a second with all the titles and businesses and books and interest and everything. But Haley is a member of RD21. It's the Glenwood South Connection. They meet every Wednesday at noon at the Ale House on Glenwood Avenue in downtown Raleigh. However, we are still virtual, so we are all learning. We're getting better at Zoom, right, Haley?
Absolutely. It's been an entire process of converting over and learning how to Zoom.
And would you give most of us a I really want to get better grade, followed by, okay, I'm getting tired of this now?
You know, it's been pretty amazing because, I've seen the progression over time where people are starting to get much more comfortable with the technology, and they are starting to interact more and learn how to use things like the chat messenger and use all the features and functions of Zoom, which I found kind of fun because I've been using Zoom for several years in my business because I have clients all over the world. So that's the only way we can chat. So it's been interesting to see, I guess, my online world and my in-person real life world kind of start to collide together in the last few months.
Two things on different ends of the spectrum for me for Zoom is I really am not happy with people that refuse to turn on their video.
Mm-hmm.
They know they're supposed to be in this meeting, yet we don't get the video. And I always wonder, what are you doing and are you really there? And the other thing that cracks me up is people who never look at the chat box to see if somebody's trying to get in touch with them to ask them a question.
Yeah, and I like the chat box because you can ask people questions. And if you've got a side conversation or, those side questions that need to happen, here, I need to remind you later to do this, or I
Yep.
need to ask you about this. Hey, can we set up a call or something? All that note passing that goes on in a normal BNI meeting. That's the only way that can happen because you can't exactly interrupt the entire meeting and go, hey, everybody, wait, I got this question.
With all the other networking events I do that are either aren't BNI or a new group that I don't know many people, and I want to reach out to them to set up a one-to-one, and it's like crickets. So one day I texted somebody in the group I knew that wouldn't answer the chat box. So I texted him. He goes, hey, man, how come you're texting me? And I said, because you won't look at the chat box for my question. And we chuckled. He looked in the chat box and we set up a meeting. So what do you
That's
do, right?
awesome.
So Haley's world is a lot of things. She owns Fiercely Marketing, which is a massively, massively successful digital marketing company. Is that the new word these days, digital marketing? Am I safe with that?
Yeah, digital marketing is a good way to
Okay.
describe it.
But you build website, you do SEO, you do all kinds of things. I love the name Leadership Girl that you grabbed. That's your business coaching side
Mhm.
of that world. You are a best-selling author 3 times over, stay at home, working mom, kids, husband, pets going all in and out. And you truly, they wrote the 80s about you. You truly love the nightlife, don't you?
Yes, it's been funny because as you say that, I'm like, yeah, I've been up. I haven't gotten to bed before 3 o'clock any night in the last 2 or 3 weeks.
I've learned a lot about Haley since I've been on social media and Facebook more. is I go to bed at 8:30 because I get up at about 4 and do the old guy walk around the neighborhood. And so when I get back walking, I'll fire up the computer, check some things, and I go onto Facebook, and I can tell how much fun you've had each evening as to how late your last post is.
Yeah, and what's really funny is my husband is on the same kind of schedule you are, and he gets up and he goes and he swims or bike rides early in the morning. So it is not unusual that he's waking up just as I'm going to bed.
But the beautiful thing of the digital world is we can kind of work on whatever schedule we want, and especially someone like you with clients all over the world.
Absolutely. And that is part of what's driving the crazy hours is that my late night calls are with clients that are either in the Far East, in Japan or Singapore, or they are calls that are really late with people who are morning time in Europe or in Africa. So
Ha- Have you learned all the time zones around the world for the most part?
I haven't learned all of them, but I can kind of start to, spitball and guess roughly what time of day it is based on where it is, where I am.
So if it's we're here 11 a.m. Eastern, so what time would it be in, say, Tokyo?
It is 1 p.m. or 1 a.m. Sorry,
Okay.
or
The next day, right?
the next day. Yeah,
In London?
London is 5 hours ahead, so it's 4.
Yeah, I learned that from watching Wimbledon every year. Breakfast at Wimbledon, I knew that came on 7 o'clock here, which meant they started at noon. And Hawaii is 6 hours behind us.
5 behind us,
Okay,
so
all
it's
right,
6 a.m. there.
all right. So if anybody ever has a question, just shoot Haley a note. She'll be able to help you with it. Fiercely Marketing. You started that. How and why?
How and why? So it's actually kind of interesting. My background is in software engineering, and um, I am a computer programmer. I have been a computer programmer for many years, and I decided that to further my career, I was going to go get my MBA. And so I went to Duke, I got my MBA, and I swore that I would never do websites again, that I was done with that part of my life. And I had people who came to me um, whose websites were half done, who were half finished, who were broken, that were messed up. And I'm like, okay, I'll fix it. This isn't really my business, but I'm doing social media, I'm doing ads, but I'll do your website. And it grew because I encountered so many websites that were half done. And I had a particular set of incidents about 3.5 years ago where I hired somebody and paid them several $1,000s, many thousands of dollars to do a website for my home care agency. It took 5 months. It came back. Half of the stuff wasn't there. And it was never really finished. Not really. And I finally looked at it and I'm like, gosh, I can do better than this. And when I decided to sell my home care agency after my daughter had her traumatic brain injury, I was like, okay, I'm doing this digital marketing thing. And these websites just kept finding me. In my own personal experience of hiring somebody and spending so much money to have a website done and having it look like a mess. And then, followed by having so many members of my own BNI group come to me and say, hey, I know you don't really do websites, but could you take a look at this? And I started fixing one website after another in the group.
Did you join?
Uh-oh. It's not you, Haley.
Hey, I can
Uh,
see. Hey,
well,
do you want me to go?
I know his power didn't go out because our power goes out together. We live
Oh,
close. Um,
Oh,
that's
I just
fine.
did the
That's good.
pre-drop thing. That happens. Oh, if
Yes.
I only had $1 for every time I've been on a Zoom call, but it has dropped.
So you're doing art also? Is that a picture that you drew behind you?
Oh, that one is actually like a Bed Bath and Beyond one. I do
Oh.
art, but that one was just one that I fell in love with. I haven't painted in a number of years because I've been so busy doing other stuff. I have a quilt hanging on the wall and I do painting and do stuff.
Well, you started talking about fixing websites, and I always tell people about you fixing Jeff's site and how messy it was, and
Oh my God.
it was, and people don't understand that. Oh yeah, I want a WordPress site. Well, that's fine. You can have a WordPress site, but you understand that you're gonna have to baby it and tend to it and make sure that. And people don't understand it. Just let it go.
Yeah, they do. And
Yeah.
I mean, I actually have some more articles that I'm waiting for my content writer to give me for his website. But no, it's a work in progress. It's always,
Yep.
updating and changing and fixing and
And the bad side of it is the fact that people think, oh, I
Huh?
can do it
Was that
myself.
me?
There you are.
Okay, let's continue. So, Haley, did you join BNI as Fiercely Marketing?
I joined BNI as leadership girl doing social media. So that was how I joined. And it was really interesting because there were several of the members of the group who came to me pretty quickly because they had worked with like the guy who was in the group maybe for a while, and they had done websites or they had worked with somebody else entirely, and they just needed some stuff tweaked on their website or fixed. Like, hey, my about me page is not here, this is not there, that's not there, how do I get this stuff fixed? So I worked with them and we got their stuff fixed.
And it grew and it grew and it grew, right?
And it's grown and it's grown and it's grown. So yeah, Saturday morning at 4 a.m., we were having a team call because we were trying to get a client's website finished. And I was laughing because my operations manager is normally a complete and total teetotaler, and she's drinking wine and instructing me on what to update next. It's pretty funny.
Very nice. Had you been to bed yet before the meeting?
Oh no, of course not.
Naturally. All right. For those of us at home, especially business owners, give me first couple easy, quick tips we can do to get better to either be better or more efficient on social media.
So better or more efficient on social media. There's a lot of little things that we can do. One is putting up a professional or at least a good headshot. I don't have a current professional headshot because I had bariatric surgery a year ago, and we've been in COVID, and I've been having headshots done every few months, and I just haven't been able to keep up. But a professional headshot is a really good thing to do because I see a lot of people who have pictures of their pets, who have pictures of their husbands, pictures of themselves not quite fully dressed. I mean, the guys without a shirt, the women in the bikini, whatever. And if you're using social media at all for your business, you definitely want to have a professional headshot. And the other thing is that, when we start thinking about using social media for business, we're connecting with people. And a lot of times we're accepting connections on Facebook and we're accepting connections on LinkedIn. And the biggest pain point I hear from people is from people who have businesses who don't necessarily want to share details of their personal life with their business connections that they share with their family. So like pictures of their kids or whatever. And one of the things I try to tell them is that, look, social media by its very nature is very hard to control privacy on. So when you're on social media, you have to understand that what you're putting out there may be screenshotted and seen by the world. So that's the first thing you have to be aware of. The next thing is that, people want to connect with you. So you have to really think about what that means and how you're going to allow them to connect with you. Are you going to set up a business profile and tell people to follow you that way? Or are you going to lock down your own personal content? It really amounts to personal preference. One thing that I see a lot of people do is that they create a whole separate business profile for themselves. The reason that that's not a good idea is that that is actually a violation of Facebook's terms and conditions. And if Facebook discovers that duplicate account type of situation, they can and will shut down your entire accounts.
Why is that?
Well, Facebook believes that you should have a single sign-on, one login. Google is the same way. Google wants you to have one login that you use to basically log into everything. So their entire model for both platforms is that you log in one time and then you access all of your stuff and you control all of your information. So when you are doing this multiple versions of yourself, it can't quite tell what you're trying to do. And that's also a digital footprint of a lot of scammers, is that they'll create multiple duplicate profiles. So it's actually basically telling them that you're maybe not quite legitimate, that kind of a thing.
If you are a small business and you don't go the business Facebook page route that, like I said, Facebook says don't do, then how do you mix that personal site with business to post on Facebook?
Right. I think you have to decide what you're willing to share and what you're not. And if you're not willing to share it with your dry cleaner, then it may not belong on your Facebook page at all. Or the other thing you can do, there's several things you can do. You can set up a private Facebook group for just your family members and have all your family members in a single Facebook group or in a secret group. And you can share pictures galore in there. And the nice thing about private and secret groups is nobody can share those posts. They can never be public unless somebody screenshots it and shares it, right? So you essentially are controlling the breadth and reach of those things. You can also start, messenger groups, Facebook Messenger. You can share information that way. You don't have to share everything either on your profile or your story. The other option is when you post something, you can decide which of your friends actually get to see it. I'm a bit leery of that option only because I have seen over the last few years, Facebook decide to alter their security settings a number of times. So sometimes things that were set to be private are suddenly public, and now you've got a problem.
LinkedIn is easy to do. It's straight business. They're very careful of what you can allow, what they allow you to have on there. So that's kind of easy.
Right.
Instagram and Facebook. Well, on Twitter, you just complain about everything and they let you on. So that's easy to know.
Right.
But on Instagram and Facebook, that they both have kind of that gray area, don't
they? They do. And that is part of, life, is people tend to do business with those people they know, like, and trust. And a lot of times they're doing business with their friends. So it's that life is messy. So you have to really think about, okay, so how messy am I going to allow it to be? How much of my message, my story, am I going to share at any given point in time with people? And be aware that, anything that you post anywhere on social media, no matter how private you think it is not private.
I agree. And then that becomes, because you don't want to share a lot of personal stuff to the business connections you have on Facebook. And likewise, you don't want to share a lot of business stuff with family and friends who are happy that you're doing well in your own business, but really don't care to hear much about that.
Right. So if you're using your personal profile, and this is your personal profile, not your business profile, at all, in any kind of I'm sharing what I'm doing in my business kind of context, it should be no more than like 1 in 8 or 1 in 10 posts anyway. Even though if they were all your business connections, it's not like you should be selling all the time. So people go on to social media to be social, not necessarily to be sold to. So they may decide to buy, but they're not there to necessarily have you pitching to them. And it doesn't matter whether it's Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or whatever.
Yeah, because a lot of people on LinkedIn, at least, will post tips. I
Mhm.
know through your Facebook page, there's a lot of questions just to generate interaction and comments.
Mhm.
Are our friends and family on Facebook, do they even want to see that?
A lot of times my friends and family on Facebook answer more of the silly questions than some of my business connections, which is kind of interesting because it actually then turns around and draws in my business connections because they start to see it as more of a, hey, come play with me kind of environment.
Now I'm with you on that. The other thing that you do so well, and you hit a milestone the other day, is a Facebook group. And I was about a 1.5 on a scale of 10 understanding the Facebook group. Now I'm part of that because I do an 11:30 Tuesday morning presentation on sales and marketing for coaching. And I thank you for bringing that up to give me the opportunity to do that. You just passed 67,000 members in your Facebook group. We as business owners don't know if we'll ever get to 67,000 like you have, but it's actually a good idea to build our community and build our tribe as you've taught a lot of us how to do, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I, I can't undervalue or overestimate or overstate how important having a tribe really is around your business. I know that people always buy from those they know, like, and trust, right? And you can do ads until the cows come home. And a lot of big businesses like Coca-Cola and Pepsi and all of those really do a phenomenal job with branding. But for those of us who start off as little fry, who maybe have a couple of $100 in our pocket, um, that's not really a feasible thing to throw those kind of dollars into, advertising. I have a friend who literally started her business about 8 or 10 months ago. She's a shaman and she is incredibly frugal and she's been consuming all of the free materials that are out there. And she has been building her tribe. She's grown her business to $10,000 and to fully paying all of her rent and everything on basically a $12 domain registration on Google. That was her entire outlay and expenditure. And that's part of the point of building a tribe is that you get the reach, you get the following, you get people to know, like, and trust you, and eventually refer and buy from you.
If somebody watching or listening today wants to, or let's say they've even thought about it
Mhm.
and they want to move forward with starting their own Facebook group, you start with not necessarily all your friends, but all the people you're connected with that could be a potential client or a referral partner.
Absolutely. And it's important to pick and choose those first 100 or so clients. So, or those first 100 or so people that you get into that group. A lot of people will get, their first, they'll invite a couple of friends and then they'll kind of lose their mojo. They'll get kind of scared and they'll be like, eek, I don't know if I can do this. And then they'll start doing some of the more spammy stuff that I've seen MLMs do, or I see some lead generation companies recommend where they will start randomly friending people. And then there's this method online in direct sales called ATM, which I don't think is really a good way to treat your clients or your customers or your leads or friends. It's add, tag, and then message them. So you literally add people as a friend, add them to your group, and then you tag them, and then you message them and let them know that they've been added to your group. And that to me is like a really skeevy way of doing it. Because seeing my connections as an ATM machine is not how I choose to do business. So it's really about picking and choosing who you want to be and hand selecting the people that you want in your group, at least to start with. And that's your connections on Facebook, but don't forget about LinkedIn. I have one client who grew his group from 0 to almost 1,000 members in the last 6 months, doing this method of going through all of his LinkedIn connections and going through who he knew from his networking meetings and all of his, his Rolodex, and messaging people one by one and saying, hey, I'm doing this thing. I think you would be an amazing fit for it. I think it could offer a tremendous amount of value to you for your business. Here, come join me.
Do you need to be very specific in the purpose of the group?
Yes. The more specific you are, the better your group is going to do. A lot of times people will try to go after a really broad audience. I mean, it's like chiropractors who say that they can serve everybody with a spine. I mean, yes, technically they can serve everybody with a spine. However, it makes for really hard messaging and marketing.
And your group is, for everybody watching, it's Women's Entrepreneur Network.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go into Facebook and you type in Women's Entrepreneur Network, it's the one that says over 67,000 members. So click on that and join. It's wonderful content. And we can all, if you think you know everything and you don't need to learn anymore, then you just really ought to just stop doing everything if you think you know everything, because you're wrong, first of all, and you're never going to grow no matter what you're doing. What I picked up on quickly was just the interaction with people who post something, and then I find myself responding to it with some sort of an agreement or an example of why I really like what they posted, and just getting that organic interaction going, which I really hadn't thought would happen. And I was very, very pleased with that. And I've actually started conversing with a couple of people through your group just because of that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's really interesting how going into a couple of Facebook groups, and you don't have to join 500 of them for, any reason whatsoever. And you go into a couple and you join and you just start connecting with people, commenting on their posts, giving them, feedback, giving them information. And suddenly you find that your business grows because you're building those connections and you're building that know, like, and trust factor. And then they want to know what the heck it is that you do and how you can help them.
And especially if you can work across state lines like both you and I can. Certainly I can be a business coach to somebody anywhere through, with Zoom now. And this morning you had posted basically Monday, give us your Facebook page name. And I put mine up there and I put a little brief descriptor, business coach focusing on sales and marketing. And then the Facebook page, Wired to Change. And one of the people in your group just typed follow. And so I clicked on her name and messaged her and said, hey, thanks for following my post. I'm new to understanding what follow means, but, can I help you with anything? And I think we've swapped messages back and forth, trying to get a meeting, hopefully the next day or two, just to talk. And it was that simple.
Absolutely. Yeah. And when people are interested, they'll let you know that they're interested and they'll reach out or they'll comment on your post. And then, your job is just to follow up with them and say, hey, how can I help you?
And I found out LinkedIn's kind of cold, especially if someone wants to connect with you and you don't know them and they say, hey, Mike, I saw your profile. You're a business coach and a podcaster. Would love to connect and see how we can help each other. And then the minute I hit connect, within 2 seconds, here comes their message. I don't have a problem with that. My problem is when it's 4 paragraphs. So now you're selling. If you said, hey, Mike, thanks for connecting. I'd love to know a little bit more about what you do. Okay, now you have starting to get my attention now because you at least asked me something. But man, those 4 paragraph sales responses, Oh, I just need to start unconnecting with people like that.
Well, those are bots too.
Okay.
So there are bots and all kinds of things that you can attach to Facebook and LinkedIn and all of that. And you have to be really careful with them. So one of the things that people have set up is that they go out and they go find X number of people to connect with in a day. And they're doing it for lead generation. And it's almost like the Ponzi scheme of lead generation, where they go, hey, I'm going to teach you how to generate leads in your business. And then it's literally, hey, I'm going to have you message 150 people a day saying, hey, I'm going to teach you how to generate leads in your business. And, it's funny because the bot will respond. And I actually died laughing one time. I had one person who messaged me and said, hey, tell me, how are you getting leads in your business? I said, well, I have this Facebook group with about 65,000 members in it. I think I'm set on leads at the moment. I'm just trying to figure out what to do with all of the leads I'm getting. And she's like, oh, I hear that problem a lot.
Yeah. I think this is a one you posted, how you turned it around on them and asked how you could help them. Do you remember that story? It's probably in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I've definitely had more than a few people who will blind message me, and they'll be trying to sell me something or trying to reach out to me or get me to take some action. And obviously they're not doing any sort of research whatsoever. And it is not unusual that when they reach out to me and they do that first thing they do to connect with me, or first conversation they have with me after we connect is, hey, tell me, about such and such. And I'm like, no, I'm good. And then they'll start into their spiel. And it's like, if you really want to learn how to generate leads in your business, let me know. I'll be happy to teach you how to do that.
It's like asking the old telemarketer when they call you at dinner time, say, is this a good time to talk? It's like, no, if you'll give me your name and number, I'll call you back here in a little bit and try to get their dinner time. But it is amazing what's out there. And for people like me who don't pick up on those signs, probably need to start being a little bit more careful of who I'm connecting with. We are here with Haley Gray, owner of Fiercely Marketing. You can reach her at fiercelymarketing.com. Haley is in RD21. They are the Glenwood South Connection, meet Wednesdays at noon. And today's show is brought to you by Oak City Tech. They can help you increase your traffic, leads, and sales. I know they've helped me with my business. They can build websites, do SEO, social media, email marketing, anything you need. If you'll go to oakcitytech.com, tell Drago we said hi. All right, Haley, you've often talk about your family life at home. You work from the house. It's your husband, Richard, 4 kids, and you affectionately call everything else the zoo with all the animals going back and forth. I always ask people on the show how they met their spouse, and do you both tell the story the same way?
I'm not sure my husband would give you a straight answer if you asked him. He will tell you we met through a mutual acquaintance of ours. His little sister in the fraternity was one of my sorority sisters. And I was 17 because I went to college at 17. And I was goofing around in one of my sorority sisters' rooms and joking. And I, for some reason, decided it was a good idea to bark like a seal. And he did the same thing back. And she's like, hold on a minute. You two need to talk to each other. So our first date was actually on my 18th birthday. And right after my sorority sisters threw me a jailbait no more party. And we went to Baskin Robbins. So here we are 28 years of marriage later, and a few more than that.
That's funny. And this was at NC State?
This was actually at Auburn.
Okay.
I am 4 years younger than he is. So we met at Auburn, and he graduated, and I was an architecture major, and I had to make a decision basically, and we jointly had to make a decision that I was either going to switch majors at Auburn into computer science, and because there's almost no overlap between architecture and computer science, I was going to have another 4 years of school either way. Even if I had completed architecture, it would have been 4 more years of school. And the other option was for us, or for me, to transfer to NC State. But the only way I was going to transfer to NC State was if I was going to get in-state tuition. And that meant we would have to get married in order for me to be able to get in-state tuition and continue. So that was what we chose to do, rather than do the whole back and forth thing between Auburn and North Carolina.
And where would he tell a different story in what you just told us?
I don't think there would be any mention of barking like seals.
He doesn't tell his buddies that he had so much game back then he could bark like a seal and he got a girl.
Yep, pretty much.
The other story I love about you and what you've gone through, and you'll have to remind me again on kind of the start date on this, but you have lost 175 pounds.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I have.
Very impressive.
Thank you.
So try to kind of sum that up for us, kind of how you got to that point, and what were the couple, 3 things that kept you going and made you hit your goal?
So I'm not quite at goal weight yet, but it's been a heck of a journey, and I'm kind of happy with where I'm at. Really, I started working out with Coach Chris, who was in my BNI group just about 2 years ago. And he is really just a phenomenal motivator. And I started working out with him and having some success and changing my diet. And I actually developed or had an umbilical hernia that decided to act up. Gotta love having children, right? And,
I'll take your word for that.
Yeah. So, the things we do, right? So the surgeon looks at me and says, well, you've got to lose all this weight, or, and you've got to have bariatric surgery, or you're going to keep having complications. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I was like, okay, sign me up. So I had the hernia surgery, and then I had 6 months later, I had bariatric surgery. And in between that, I was working out with Coach Chris, to the limits of what, my surgeon and my body would allow me to do, recovering from abdominal surgery. And I lost about 50 pounds before I had surgery. And then I had surgery April of 2019. And here I sit, 15, 16 months later, I have, lost another 100 and some odd pounds. So I've lost a total of about 175.
Very impressive. What keeps you motivated to continue that process?
It's been funny because it's been shockingly easy to do. Once I got my head in the game and I got my head in the right place, and I did a lot of energy work, I did a lot of mindset work prior to agreeing to have the surgery. And there was actually a huge turning point where part of the reason I gained weight was that I just didn't care as much about what I ate or when I ate it. And if I was stressed, it wasn't that I would binge. It would be just that, oh yeah, I'll have an extra Oreo cookie here and there. And then lo and behold, my body, the way it metabolisms, I've got that European peasant, plump as a partridge kind of genes going on. And, it's a great survival skill, but it definitely tends to pack on the pounds. So, that extra Oreo cookie just added up. And I realized when my daughter attempted suicide and overdosed and was in the hospital, in the ICU, and I felt no desire to have that extra Oreo cookie or soda or anything else. It was just normal, I guess, at that point, that I was going to be able to go through and lose the weight. And one of the things I see in the bariatric community is a lot of people have the surgery because they think it's a magic fix. And it's just a tool set. And they spend a lot of time chasing food that they can't have or shouldn't have or whatever. And I mean, at this point, I mean, I eat pretty much whatever I feel like eating whenever I feel like eating. That's one of the beauties of the particular surgery that I had.
Your job, at least these days, you're sitting a lot because you're at
Hmm.
your computer 18 hours a day, maybe?
About
Okay. So how do you
16,
get
18.
up and move around, exercise? How do you make yourself leave that chair?
I do a lot of baking, and I don't necessarily eat everything I bake.
We're going to get to that in a second.
And then I go out and I go walking every day with my husband. And since quarantine started, we've gone walking about 95% of the time. The only times we haven't gone were when I couldn't move a meeting around or it was raining.
Yes. I was going to walk this morning. It was just drizzling, but the lightning said, yeah, probably not this morning. So
Yeah, no playing lightning rod in the
no, you got
cul-de-sac.
other things to worry about. You mentioned Coach Chris, a friend of the show. He's been on before. Just the energy from him. It's like my 2-year-old grandson just never stops. And
Hmm.
you can tell good people when you meet them, and they truly,
Absolutely.
truly want you to succeed. And Coach Chris is certainly one of them. You are known for baking. You offer food. You ding dong ditch food. How do you not eat these cinnamon buns and the bread and all the stuff you make?
Um, I eat some of it. What's actually interesting is since my bariatric surgery, I can't eat most of the bready stuff without it just really upsetting my stomach. So talk about a motivator to not eat certain things. It's almost like being celiac in some ways. I'm not, but I have some of the symptoms. So I definitely don't feel the need, but I love the smell of things baking. And I love the feel of like kneading dough and stuff. So it's been interesting. I found out that I can actually eat sourdough items. So whether that's cinnamon rolls or just straight bread without it causing me problems because of, I guess, the bacteria and the fermentation process. So I decided when quarantine started in March that I would start baking some more. I've always been a baker. I cook a lot. So we just started building, starting the sourdough, getting it going. And then I decided I wanted sourdough cinnamon rolls. And I finally managed, after almost 28 years of marriage, to perfect a cinnamon roll recipe and get it to actually turn out right. And this was through countless rounds of trial and error. Countless,
It,
my poor family at times.
is this a family affair in the kitchen or just you?
It is. So the cinnamon rolls are actually kind of funny because we started doing it and giving them away, and then people kept trying to pay me. So we started just taking donations, and those go to the food bank of North Carolina. And we take those donations in if somebody isn't doing like a employer matching grant or something. And my 17-year-old son, it turns out, is quite the baker. And he likes to bake. He doesn't like to clean up, but he likes to bake. So
Is he the one that walks past you at 2 a.m. because you're still on your computer working?
sometimes that's the one, sometimes it's the other one. The other one decided after quarantine started that he was going to be doing his schoolwork from 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. every day, because it didn't matter what 3 hours a day he spent doing schoolwork. He just had to spend 3 hours a day doing it.
I always like, now that we've been doing Zoom shows, is to ask people what room they're sitting in, because everybody can see, whatever the background is. But what room are you in?
I'm actually in my office, which used to be the dining room, but it hasn't been the dining room in probably 10 years.
And you have what we can't see. You have everything you need right in here on the desk next to your computer, your notes, post-it notes, to-do list, whatever it is there.
All over my monitor, ring lights. I also happen to have a turtle in a tank, like right there. And he's just on the other side of the door. And then I have a fish tank over there with 2 big goldfish named Flotsam and Jetsam.
And how'd you come up with those names?
That's from The Little Mermaid.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. The eels.
All right. I got you.
And since I now have 2 of them, they're Flotsam and Jetsam.
Nice. behind your right shoulder, what is that picture?
That
Yeah.
is a picture we got from Bed Bath & Beyond that we had hung in the au pairs room. And when we used to have au pairs, which are a cross between a nanny and a foreign exchange student. And I eventually snagged it after we no longer had au pairs and my kids didn't want the picture in their room. I was like, well, I want that.
Amongst all your other skills, couple of businesses, couple of best-selling books, baking, uh, are you officially trilingual?
I am.
So,
I'm fluent in 3 and I'm dangerous in about 3 or 4 more.
all right, so Portuguese and Spanish and English. So
Correct.
Portuguese and Spanish, you've nailed.
I grew up in South America. I lived in Venezuela for 3.5 years, and then I got my undergraduate degree from NC State. One of my undergraduate degrees is in Spanish literature. And I learned Portuguese in Brazil growing up. And it actually turns out that I now speak Spanish with a Brazilian accent.
How does that go over in that world?
Just fine.
How often do you need that for your business?
I don't use it very much for my business. It's really interesting. I could serve the Latino community, but my team doesn't necessarily all speak Spanish. I would love to be in a situation where I could, serve more people in the Latino community, but I'd have to hire more Spanish speakers on my team. And I haven't found them yet.
If any fluent digital folks that speak Spanish, go to Fiercely Marketing, send Haley a note, help her grow her empire. What are the 3 you're kind of dangerous in?
So I took Mandarin for 4 years in high school. So I can
geez.
understand a fair bit of Mandarin. French, I understand. I can speak a little bit of Italian, a little bit of German. So a little bit here and there.
Why Mandarin, and where did you go to high school?
So my parents moved from Rio de Janeiro to Florence, Alabama when I was 11. And
you don't see those cities linked much, do you?
Small, tiny bit of culture shock. So my mom promised me when we moved that she would put me in Chinese classes. And my dad's boss, his wife taught Chinese lessons at a language school where we were to a bunch of adults and to me. So I took Chinese lessons from her, Mandarin lessons for 4 years.
And I assume you're an avid reader?
I am.
Are you one of those disgustingly talented people that can read 2 books at once?
I can't hold one in each hand and read 2 at the same time, but I could do 2 different genres, like, over here and then over there kind of a thing.
So you could read 2 chapters tonight in one book and then 2 chapters tomorrow in another book and keep up with each book as you finish, right?
Yes, I frequently do that, but normally, like if I'm reading for pleasure, the book doesn't last more than about 2 or 3 hours.
Oh, okay.
I'm one of those.
All right. Are you an inside the house or outside the house reader?
Inside.
Old school book or Kindle?
Oh, it has to be paper.
Okay, good. I'm with you on that.
It's funny. My youngest was really bummed when quarantine started because they shut the library down, and we had been trying to get him to the library, but we couldn't do it. So we ended up ordering a massive number of books off of Amazon for him because Kindle wasn't going to do. Thank God for used books.
Yes. That's a nice market that people don't look into, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. I love it because, once I read it, it's used anyway.
Do you write notes in it?
I don't usually write notes in my books.
Okay. One of the things I'm learning about you as you and I cross paths more and spend more time together is your wicked sense of humor. It's one of those, it's funny, but you don't see it a lot, but when you see it, you're like, dang, that's good. And what I continue to marvel at is your Twitter handle, which is Dartha Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
That's actually been my user ID on Yahoo since 1996 or 7. Why? My husband and I kind of jokingly came up with that because it pokes fun at my housekeeping skills or lack thereof. I actually, when we first got married, I haven't had to do laundry in 28 years.
Dang.
Yeah, takes skill, right?
Yes.
We got a washing machine about a month after we got married. And yeah, I did laundry and I dyed all of my husband's clothes pink.
It sounds like a husband move, putting the reds in with the whites.
I washed his red sweater, and I had previously washed it and like soaked it in vinegar and done all the things. And so I naively assumed it would be fine, and it wasn't fine. Or actually it really was fine. It was awesome.
It got you out of work. It's a great husband move. We purposely load the dishwasher poorly. So our wife says, just get out of the way, I'll do it. And it's a great husband move
See,
what you did. Yeah.
I'm the one who loads the dishwasher poorly. And my husband would always come into the dishwasher and rearrange it every time I loaded it, so I quit. But it finally got to a point once we had 4 kids that wasn't going to fly. So I would like surreptitiously load the dishwasher and, cram it shut and start it running before he could ever see the mess.
I generally keep up the kitchen, when I get almost everything in there, but there's like 2 plates in a bowl that my eyes just don't see going anywhere, I'll call Becky in and she'll tidy it up and start it. But otherwise, I'm getting pretty good at it. Who has Richard done your laundry since that one time you mix reds and whites?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah,
Can the
28
kids
years.
do their own?
Yeah, the kids do their own.
Okay. And your boys can cook.
And the boys can cook.
Yeah.
And the girls suck at cooking.
Okay, but can they change a tire?
Yes, they can.
Okay.
And oil.
Well,
And they can fix the transmission in a car too.
and we have 2 boys, and right before they graduated high school and left the house, my wife made sure that they could cook somewhat, but they could do their own laundry and they could iron. And I have 4 nieces, and I believe one of them's still in high school, but I believe the other 3 were taught by their dads, you're going to learn how to change your own tires so you can at least get home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Xena carries jumper cables. We have jumper
Mhm.
cables in all the cars, and I can't tell you how many times she's had to jump somebody else's car.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Do you guys play quirky board games and stuff as a family?
um, not so much. I mean, as a family, we tend to eat dinner together almost every night. Most of the hijinks happen at the dinner table.
Is it somebody different each night, or do you kind of know who starts it?
We kind of play off of each other.
Oh,
My
yeah.
17-year-old son has a really slap happy, silly sense of humor. And it has definitely been coming out in spades in the last year or so. And he and I will holler back and forth across the house, like hollering for pigs kind of a thing. And it's a thing. And the first time my husband heard us do this, because he hadn't been home enough to hear us do it, he was like, what in the world just happened in here? And it's really funny because all of my kids have gone to the same YMCA camps and the same, camps. And Xena did years and years and years of Girl Scout camps, and so did my oldest. And then the 2 boys have done tons and tons of Boy Scout camps. So there's like all these camp songs that they know, and they'll just start singing them at the kitchen table. And my husband just grits his teeth and bears it because he knows that comes entirely from me.
And it's not going to stop.
And it's not going to stop.
Now, one of the cool things about you and your accomplishments are the businesses you've started and grown, the Facebook group you started and grown, the losing the weight. But the best thing you've done for society, Haley, is help sell Girl Scout cookies. I love those. You just can't eat enough.
Oh, really?
No, they're so good. Whenever you go to Walmart or any store, you have to buy a box. You just put them in. If you have too many, just put them in the freezer. They're still good, but Girl Scout cookies are just tried and true. So I applaud you for helping your daughter. And tell me again how many boxes she sold.
So my older daughter sold 10,000 boxes of cookies lifetime. My younger daughter is at about just around 23,000 boxes.
What, your youngest daughter, what is the skill set that allows her to sell 23,000?
I think she's obnoxious, but she's really persistent. And I mean, she's really good at sales, and she asks everybody she comes across if they want to buy Girl Scout cookies. And then of course, by her like late high school years, she just had such a huge customer base that it didn't matter. People would just find her and buy cookies.
Yeah, because you get to the point and you say, when are they coming out?
Oh, absolutely. But I laughed at your comment about putting them in the freezer, because there would be a lot of women who would be like, no, sorry, honey, I'm on a diet. I'm not going to buy any cookies right now. She's like, oh, that's okay. You can buy cookies now, and you can actually buy a case, put them in your freezer, keep it sealed. And when you go off your diet, you'll have your cookies there.
Oh, we've eaten many Girl Scout cookies out of the freezer and many scoops of cookie dough right out of the wrapper from the store, which I know I've read you're probably not supposed to do that, but man, that stuff is good.
It's the best. I have cookie dough balls in the freezer right now.
My
kids don't even bother to bake them anymore.
No, just, yeah, I'm with you. Just eat them. Did you enjoy your life as a Girl Scout troop leader?
I did. We did some amazing things, both with my local troops and with the international travel troop.
Did you look at that as a way for a woman, successful businesswoman, to help young ladies?
Yes. And we intentionally did that with our Girl Scout troops. I partnered with my older daughter's troop, another woman who had her master's in engineering, in civil engineering. And we deliberately did a lot of very STEM focused activities for the many years we were together. And very methodically went through and encouraged girls to do stuff. And out of the girls in the troop, we had about 70% that got their earned their Girl Scout Gold Awards. And about 80% actually went into STEM fields.
Wow.
So that was intentional. In my younger daughter's Girl Scout troop, we had about 60% earned their Girl Scout Gold Awards. That's not including the bronzes and the silvers. It was closer to 100% for those. Wow. But we intentionally were pushing STEM related activities with our girls. And we have a number of girls who are pre-med, nursing, computer science, and engineering majors.
How far back in the years of you being a troop leader do you still hear from some of those girls that came through your group?
Oh, I talked to a number of those girls that I had in kindergarten that are 22, 23 years old now.
Very cool. Very cool. Are they, well, probably not old enough to have kids in Scouts yet?
Not yet.
But you sense that they will.
It seems likely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
and some of them are leading troops in college.
Really?
They're not leading Girl Scout college troops, but they're in college and they're leading younger girl troops.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's even more impressive, getting outside that college community.
Yep.
Wow. Very cool. You got to have a couple of good stories of people that just plop down a couple $100 to buy cookies at one place, right?
Absolutely. Well, and there was, when Xena was little, her first grade year, she's like, I'm going to sell 500 boxes. And I'm like, that is just ridiculous. Nobody sells 500 boxes. No, I'm going to sell 500 boxes. So she sold 589 boxes her year when she was a first grader. And her sister, not to be outdone, did 614 boxes. And it was an arms race from there. And we would be at Walmart and I'd be standing behind her and people would be like expecting me to like be watching her really closely. And it was funny because they'd come up and they'd go, how much for a box of cookies? And she'd be $3.50, please. And this is a first grader. And they'd be like, okay, well, how much is 2 boxes of cookies? And she's like, that's $7. And they'd be like, how much is 3 boxes of cookies? And this would progress until it was however much money they had in their wallet because they were just so impressed. And they would ask her, well, how much would my change be if I give you this? And then she would, and it was just the funniest thing. And she would just happily take their money. And then it was funny because whatever they had coming back in change, she'd look at them and she'd go, would you like to donate the change to Operation Cookie Drop? And they'd be like, sure, honey. And it was funny. And I'm afraid it just created a monster.
Was that an underground culture of competitive selling between groups or moms or daughters?
Not between the moms, because the moms had to cooperate in order for it to work. Because you had to have minimum number of girls at a booth and all of that kind of a thing. What ended up happening was that the girls did collaborate together to get to bigger numbers. And I was actually able to put together ways to do it and a plan to make it happen. If somebody wants to get to 500 boxes of cookies, you need to do this. If you want to get to 1,000, you do this. If you go to 2,000, you do this. And we actually were able to plan that out once we joined and created the international travel trip, because then we were selling cookies to pay for these bigger trips. And, you know, we had girls who were selling 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 boxes of cookies a year because of some of the things that I figured out when my girls were little, and they're still doing it.
Is that when your Fiercely marketing kicked in for the first time?
I jokingly say everything I know about sales I've learned from Girl Scout cookies.
But it's true, because you have to understand the consumer dynamics, don't you?
You do. And you have to understand, you know, where are you putting yourself, and, you know, what's your target audience. And let me just tell you that my girls learned a lot about profiling people as they'd come out of a Walmart, you know, or out of a Harris Teeter, and they knew which stores they wanted to be in front of and which ones they didn't.
Was there a go-to location?
Yeah, there were several. We had private booths that our troop arranged, and then there were some that were council arranged that we would go to. So it was definitely a collaborative effort to get the number of booths we needed to get to the kinds of numbers we were hitting.
So your clients that you're helping around the world make tons of money can thank the Girl Scouts of North Carolina?
North Carolina Coastal Pines, yep.
There you go. They can thank them for the start that grew your business, that allowed you to meet them, and now they're making money off that. I think I love connecting the dots in weird ways sometimes.
It is a very weird one, yes.
But a good story, though. They can find you at fiercelymarketing.com. They can find you in your Facebook group at Women's Entrepreneur Network. Are those two best ways to find you?
Those are the two best ways to find me. Absolutely.
All right, folks, I'm telling you, you need to check out this Facebook group world. If you do not know of it or know very little of it, go check it out. It's an easy, free, actually fun way to start getting connected with people. There's so many free ways, Haley, to market yourself through the internet. It's amazing, the stuff I find out each week that I should have been doing a while back.
You know, hindsight 2020, but at least you're learning it and learning new tricks. It's been really cool to watch you starting to do Facebook Lives in the Women's Entrepreneur Network, which is kind of cool.
I'll be doing my third one tomorrow. The first one, I explained it, I failed forward because the technology part of it was horrible, but I got on, so I got it done. And then last week, I got some practice from our friend Crystal Canada, and I got on last week, no problems, and I'm ready to go tomorrow. And now I'm thinking, okay, now I'm looking at Restream and not Vineyard. What's the other one? StreamYard, yes. About trying to figure out, okay, how many different other places can I get that to? What's it going to cost me? Oh yeah, you got me thinking. But
I've created a monster.
You have, but it's not that hard to do, and it's surprisingly cheap to do.
Mm-hmm.
So please, folks, go check that out. Go check out fiercelymarketing.com. Check out Women's Entrepreneur Network on Facebook. Haley, it's been a blast having you on today. I hope the rest of your week goes well.
Thank you. This has been an honor and a pleasure to be here.
Well, good. Glad to have you, and we'll see you next time on Triangle BNI.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Telestream's Wirecast software, StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.